Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the Controlled Interest Gamecast. We're on episode 4 now. Welcome, as always, where we talk about the video game industry and everything happening in video games. I'm joined, as always, by Jordan.
Smash the dunst!
And Dominic.
Hey, what's going on?
So we're going to be talking now about what we're playing, actually. And, recently I've just been playing Division here and there. Smite, as always, it doesn't change. I still haven't gotten to Child of Light, which is depressing. I have 5 badges now.
It's more depressing that you think you're getting to Child of Light.
Yeah,
every week.
I want to get to it, man. I really want to, but it's not happening. I still need to get back to Witcher as well. And then Quantum Break's coming out soon, which I really want to play that game. I'm just bad at getting to what I need to get to right now. And so I'm like at Gym 5, I think, on Pokemon Yellow. And I've also been playing some Smash on 3DS. I was having like a Smash drought. I really wanted to play some Smash. So I've been tinkering around with that, playing that. I don't play online on 3DS. I think the online play on mobile is terrible. But
Did
I
you
like
smash
the
the
single-player
dunst?
experience. No, I didn't smash the dunst. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing new has changed. Same thing, rinse and repeat. I haven't added anything in. Poor Child of Light. But yeah, that's what I've been playing anyways.
I got some flack from my buddy. Shout out to my boy Tim. Follow him at Koru615 on Twitter. He's an awesome up-and-coming hip-hop artist. But he was giving me some flack saying that, last couple weeks on the show I've been talking about how I haven't been playing much video games. So I remedied that situation this week and played about 25 hours or so of Mass Effect 1. And a little bit of Persona 3 again, but mostly focusing on Mass Effect. And I am fully into it. It's totally got its hooks in me, and I'm riding the tide with that one.
It's great to hear.
I'm so glad I got really into it. Like I said, I was about 10 hours into it, and then really just busted it wide open this week. So
How do you like them elevators? Those are great, huh?
I was riding one last night. I was like, are they serious with the speed of this thing right now? Like,
Takes
it's going,
forever.
10 feet up. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about like the menus and kind of the clunkiness of it. It is a little bit like the menus are cumbersome,
Yes.
And that does kind of harm your experience a little bit when you're trying to just hop in and out and quickly move around the game. And then, of course, I just mentioned the shooting a minute ago. Your character feels really heavy. Does that change in 2 and 3? Because it feels like it almost feels like Gears of War how heavy your character is,
So what they did is, like what we were talking about before the show, is as the games go on, they sacrifice RPG elements for gameplay improvement. And the game is very clunky. The shooting isn't great. Like, the actual gameplay of the game isn't necessarily great in Mass Effect. It's all of the lore and, like, the actual RPG elements that make the game good.
Right.
But then they realize, like, hey, we can scale back the RPG elements and make this game an actually solid game. And they get way better in 2, and they're probably the best in 3. 2 is probably the best mix of RPG elements and the shooting. The shooting's best in 3. The RPG stuff is best in 1, but 2 is, like, the best merging of those two things with them. In my opinion, anyways.
Dom, have you played Mass Effect, any of the Mass Effect games?
So I played 2 and 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I agree with Jared. I mean, 2 to 3, 3 was a little more action focused, I think. A little quicker, maybe.
Okay.
But I never played 1, so that's supposedly the biggest jump.
Yeah, 1 to 2 is huge, yeah.
Jared, you could probably answer this, and maybe even Dom too. In the first game, and they even have this in Dragon Age Inquisition, so it's not like Bioware has changed that much, but the amount of micromanaging is almost astonishing in Mass Effect 1. Like,
that changes completely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, for example, you keep 2 party members with you, but I think there's Tali, Garrus, Rex, Liara, Caden, and Ashley. So that's 6 people.
Yes.
And so you manage their armor, all of their guns, and any like biotic amps that they have or anything like that, and grenades if they use those. And then, of course, you manage all their skill points. And then on their equipment, you also manage like their mods and upgrades to their armor and their grenades and their guns.
Yes.
And then there's just so much micromanaging. It's like down to the most minute detail. Like with 6 other party members, and you're constantly bouncing back and forth between them. And then I'm like, oh geez, I haven't used this guy in like 10 hours. I've got to go use him. So yeah, I'm honestly just kind of flabbergasted at how much micromanaging there is.
Well, the thing with 2 is, so there is still managing your partners, right? And using them and everything.
That's in Dragon Age Inquisition, so I didn't think that was going to go away.
But it's a lot quicker to get in and out of those menus, and it's a lot quicker to understand what exactly you have to do. And the thing too with Mass Effect 2 is, so in Mass Effect 1 you always feel like you need to use these characters because they're not getting enough sunlight, right? In Mass Effect 2, for me personally, it felt like you didn't ever feel like you needed to use these characters because you would use them for their specific story missions to get their arcs. And almost every one of the characters in Mass Effect 2 is really cool. Like, there are some that are kind of vanilla, but a lot of them have these really cool story arcs. Like, Jacobs is one of the coolest arcs. He's one of the characters in Mass Effect 2. And you never feel as if you're not using them enough because you are, and you get these, like, cool, like, narrative experiences with them. But as far as, like, the micromanaging, it's still there, but it's way more manageable, and it's more of less of a burden and more of, like, a reward, I guess, for outfitting this guy that you learned so much about, or this girl.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, it makes a difference in Mass Effect 1. It's not like you're just putting aesthetic stuff on, and upgrading that kind of stuff. It does make a difference, but last night I just put on some podcasts and I watched an entire episode of Game Scoop, and it was an entire episode of Game Scoop and an entire episode of Talking Dead just spent in menus, micromanaging my characters and stuff, and selling off my wares to the markets and stuff. So
in Mass Effect 2, it makes it more of like you can skip guns and stuff, and you can, whenever you feel like getting back to it, you can change their stuff. It's not as like detrimental to the action, so they definitely get rid of that.
I like that what you're saying, how they naturally move you through the different characters, so you don't feel like, oh, this guy hasn't seen sunlight, like you said, in 10 days. I've got to get him out of the Normandy, There's
some really cool calls to other sci-fi universes in Mass Effect 2 as well. The game is just like, it's probably my favorite game of all time if I had to pick one. Yeah, easily.
Yeah, especially since last fall with Force Awakens, I'm just still totally on a hardcore sci-fi kick, so this is totally scratching that itch right now.
Definitely.
I can give you one piece of advice in Mass Effect 2: upgrade your ship completely.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Will do.
What have you been playing, Dom?
So up until today, I was still chugging through Ocarina of Time 3DS, which we poked fun at it last week, but it really does look much better than on the old N64. And in general, it holds up today really well, as a mobile game anyway. So yeah, I've been having some fun with that. But this morning, I finally downloaded, turned on the Fallout 4 Automatron DLC.
Yeah.
And I'm nearly done with it. And it's fun. It's a ton of fun. I mean, there's a quest line that comes with it. It's only, a couple hours long or so. Like I said, I'm not totally done with it, but the added robot customization features, it's really in depth. So they give you a couple new robot characters right off the bat, and you can also create your own robots and customize pretty much every last piece of them. That's cool. In the same vein that you customize weapons and build settlements and all that kind of stuff. And it's deep. So you literally can, change like 3 different mod slots on each arm and leg, and they can have like regular legs or a thruster. It's really deep. So I think standalone it costs like $10 just for that piece, which, I mean, it's certainly better than the cost of other DLC as far as value, but I got the season pass, so I think when you have the season pass, it's definitely you're definitely getting your money's worth.
And so we're going to be getting into the news right away, guys, and, talk about what's going on in the video game industry. The first story we have here is about Bioware and its new IP. So if you haven't heard yet, Alistair McNally, who's one of the guys, the director actually of creative development at Bioware, was walking around the GDC conference in a shirt that displayed the name of their new IP. Nobody took a picture. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody has any idea what the new IP is called. But over on WCCFtech.com and probably a couple other sites, Arnoot talks about how he has been talking about, Alistair McNally has been talking about this new IP, and he's talking about how it's actually ready to play and it's very clean. And he said, he actually tweeted, played Mass Effect Andromeda yesterday and then today our new IP, both of which are looking stunning. Today I wore a plain t-shirt. So he's basically poking fun at him wearing that new IP t-shirt that nobody noticed. So he actually talks about the new IP from Bioware Edmonton, and he states that it will have a clean sheet design and the studio wants to tell a very contemporary story, but in a world as big and imaginative as the studio's previous work in sci-fi and fantasy. And they also state in this article that based on the job vacancies that were posted for Bioware Edmonton, it's more than likely going to be a narrative-driven RPG with shooting elements, which is really interesting. What do you guys think about this new Bioware IP and it being clean sheet design?
I'm pumped for a clean sheet design, first of all.
Right.
It's what we need.
It's what we need in this industry. What do you guys think it's going to be about necessarily?
They've always obviously got their two big IPs, which is Mass Effect and Dragon Age. So they've got sci-fi, like high sci-fi and high fantasy, really. You said there's going to be shooting elements, right?
Yeah, it's a rumor based on the job vacancies that it's going to be a narrative-driven game with shooting elements.
So maybe, obviously, Borderlands isn't really a narrative-driven game, but maybe like a Borderlands type thing, like a shooter RPG mixed. And I'd be totally down with that from BioWare, dude. Like, whatever genre it is, fantasy, sci-fi, or whatever, I think they could nail that. And I'd like to see, I haven't played Mass Effect 2 or 3, so I don't know how the shooting is in there, but the shooting in Mass Effect 1 is relatively average, so...
Yeah, they get better as the games go on. The shooting mechanics are really solid. It gives up RPG elements for shooting mechanics, it seems like, as the series goes on, you know?
Okay, so yeah, maybe they have been, progressing in that area. So, yeah, I'd like to see what they could do with, Mass Effect. Even if 3 is the most shooter-esque, it's still not like totally focused on shooting. So I'd like to see what that looks like for them, just buckling down on shooting itself.
Well, it makes sense though too, because if you think about their games, the one thing they're missing is contemporary. They have like high fantasy. When people think about, they think of the past, right? And then when they think of high sci-fi, that's the future. So they don't really have anything that's of now, right? That sits current day. So it makes sense that they're kind of filling that need or that hole.
Maybe like a Watch Dogs situation.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a GTA,
yeah,
but obviously with more RPG elements, something kind of in that vein, maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't like the description of a clean sheet design. I think it's really weird. But alrighty, so the next story here with the news is over on the PlayStation Lifestyle website. Jason Dunning wrote up this piece talking about how the new report for the PS 4.5 that we were talking about last week, that Dominic said it would be really cool if it was called PS4K, is called PS4K. And shocker,
I did not come up with that, by the way. Yeah.
Well, no, you were hoping it would be called that, right?
Yeah, I think it sounds real cool.
Yeah, so it basically says that Kotaku reported on the PlayStation 4.5, and now Digital Foundry says that they have independently established that the system is indeed real. And additionally, they say Sony's research and development labs have prototype devices right now. So this makes sense that it's only in the prototype stage, because it'd be really dumb for them to try to, like we were talking about last week, release this next to the PSVR, right? That'd be really dumb.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking this is probably going to be an E3 next year kind of thing. Like, it's probably going to be, like Dom was saying, the PlayStation 3 Slim or whatever, or the Xbox 360 Slim. This is probably going to be the next step in the console for people who want to maybe get an upgrade, and before it gets to the new generation of consoles. So it's not a definitive thing, but it will definitely improve your experience if you're that dedicated to that console. What do you guys think about this PS4K being real? Supposedly, it's still a rumor, but
just because it's real, just because there's a prototype, doesn't necessarily mean that it'll ever come out.
Yes,
I think that we've seen detachable DualShock 4s that turn into Move controllers and all sorts of random versions of the Vita and PSP. And I just think that this could be another one of those things. It may come out, but there's a lot of stuff that they're going to have to figure out. I mean, every game has to be scalable now, and it's not like Xbox or NX are probably going to be the same way. Like, developers are going to have to pay special attention to Sony and their console. So, I don't know.
It's not just a PlayStation. I think this is going to be an industry thing. Like, Xbox is probably going to do something similar. I mean, looking at like technology in general, game consoles are the only thing that doesn't change over such a long period of time. I mean, computers, cell phones, I mean, everything, like there's a new model every year, right? Small changes. The old models still work, just maybe not quite as quick or clean, but I think this is just going to be a change in the way like the industry is made up, I guess. Again, if Sony tries to do this by themselves, then yeah, they could rock that boat like you were talking about, Jordan, and piss off some of the people who already bought PS4s or bought them at launch type of stuff. But if Xbox follows suit, right, I think this is where the industry needs to go. And personally, I'm in favor of that because I mean, I want things to go forward, right? I mean, like you mentioned, our consoles now, they're outdated.
Yeah,
simply
they're
put.
outdated when they came out.
So yeah. I want to ask you something about this. So I think that from the perspective of somebody who owns a launch PS4, do either of you have you guys been PS4 riders since launch?
Yep.
No, I've got the Destiny white PS4.
But you're pretty early on, right? Pretty early on in the life cycle. Okay, so I think for you guys it makes sense to be like, oh, if a PS4 came out, that'd be something I'd think about buying. But relatively, like recently, in the span of about 1.5 to 2 years, these people have heard PS4 is the better console. You need to buy PS4, and they're like, I haven't bought a console yet. I guess I'll upgrade. So now they're buying these consoles, and then a new console's going to come out. And to them, it's relatively a short time span, right? Because they barely got into this console. It's like the people who've been around since the beginning. They're gonna be like, oh wow, it's already upgrading. And I think they're gonna feel some bad blood for the one that's supposed to be all about gamers. You know, gamers don't like feeling as if they need to upgrade all the time. Even though realistically, since we are console guys, and you know, we were talking about upgradable consoles, and that's the only way we can fix the difference between PC and console.
Yeah.
I think that having these consoles come out, I could see something that's slim, so it changes like the way that the console works, and it maybe improving specs, but making it solely about 4K, like changing that. I understand it's resolution, but what if they came out with like a PlayStation 3D or an Xbox 3D? People would hate that, you know. It just seems like if they were to do this by themselves, I think it would definitely hurt them a lot.
See, it's not going to come out this year, that's for sure.
Oh no, I think it's like a year, maybe 1.5 to 2 years off.
I don't know. I could see this being a VR kind of companion, because that would be a big reason to own this.
But how much will this console cost on top of the $400 you have to pay for?
Like, think about buying a 4K TV, buying your PSVR, and upgrading your console. That's like several thousand.
Yeah, because the big thing now is you buy a regular PS4, you buy the VR, and that's under the price of a gaming PC, right? But if you
got your HD TV,
yeah. But if you're saying PS4K plus, like you said, the 4K TV plus, I think it's too much.
I think it's 2018 because I don't even think that people are going to have enough 4K TVs by next.
Yeah, 4K isn't in the average mindset of people, you know.
No, and it won't be until like fall of 2017.
I think it's for the tech-savvy people who care about that stuff. You don't see the normal gamer like, I need to play this in 4K. Like, especially console gamers. PC gamers maybe are even more on that front than a console gamer, you know?
Right.
I just think like the PlayStation VR could definitely benefit from some extra GPU power. I mean, because that's going to be its biggest downfall, looking like compared to Oculus and the Vive.
Sure.
And that's the only reason. A lot of things, you know, go against that, like you guys just mentioned, but I think this just got to have something to do with it a little bit too. I mean,
and this also plays to PlayStation maybe being all in on the VR, you know, like pushing this towards people. If it does give you a better VR experience, maybe that's what they want, is because they're relying so heavily on making this PSVR thing. But say the PSVR doesn't sell and it doesn't do well. To Jordan's point, this is still in incubation process. They may pull this and never have it, because it's like, if we don't have VR for this to actually, the point of this is to help with VR and normal games. But like, if VR doesn't do well, then they'll definitely pull the plug on this. This will never see the light of day.
If this is real, they're not going to even announce it until next year,
If they're smart.
Well, I think it is real, but I'm saying what I should have said is, if it, let's say we could look into the future and it does actually come out, I really don't think they're even talking about it until like spring of 2017.
So we have a couple of stories here. So the rumored controllers that were popping up online, there was the one of the sideways, very blurry image of the supposed NX controller, was proved fake. The guy showed his Photoshop process, and he made it in like a 3D kind of like a program to make 3D objects, and he kind of photoshopped it. And it's funny because there were people saying like, oh, we looked over this and we tested it for layer changes and all of this stuff, and it can't be photoshopped. Shows the guy's really good at it.
Wow. The
second image that popped up, people were assuming that it was from a studio, where it's like a laptop on a black desk with the black NX controller. I keep wanting to say Wii U. That was actually...
Why would you ever want to say Wii U? That's a terrible word.
That was actually a 3D printed model that a guy made. He also made a video showing how he made it, putting the stickers, and both of them basically just made it based off of the what was it? The blueprints, the pan that popped up a while back, and yeah, they're both fake. Luckily for anybody who wants Nintendo to stay alive, luckily they're both fake. I mean, they're both fake, but the controller still could look like this. Unless, going to our next story, also NX news, there was a Reddit AMA with a supposed AAA developer who's porting an Xbox One and PS4 game to the NX. And he talks about the dev kit and some real quick bullet points here. The controller doesn't have an oval screen. It's standard rectangle, has physical buttons with the screen behind him, doesn't have a form-shifting screen, nor does it have touch screen with haptic feedback. It's hardwired to the dev kit, which the actual box looks like a boring black box. That's how dev kits are. It's not what the console's going to look like. And he doesn't know if it's backwards compatible, but it doesn't seem like it. And it's more powerful than PS4, from what he stated. The controller is full screen, more traditional, super powerful, and he actually makes a sketch of it that I'll put in the video portion of this podcast so you can see what his sketch of the controller is. There's no way for him to confirm that this is real, because he doesn't want to give out his job placement, stuff like that, for fear of losing his job or his company getting into trouble. But what do you guys think about this? Is this legitimate? And if it is, what do you guys think of these reports?
Dude, I really doubt that this is real. I mean, we just went through a whole charade of, these controller leaks that, as we just found out, some guy threw together in Photoshop and printed, So I really doubt. I mean, anyone can go on Reddit, type this up, say they're a dev. You know what I mean? I don't buy it.
But he's saying good things, though, which is at least good. At least it's not like them photoshopping terrible controllers.
Well, yeah. I mean, I hope he's right on a lot of these points.
If there is a rumor I want to be true, it's this and not those Photoshop images. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And he may be right about a few of these things, but I doubt this guy actually has any clue.
Well,
could be me.
I will say one of the last times we got one of these, Reddit posts from an insider was I think it was a woman who said she was from Bethesda and was talking all about Fallout 4 with it being in Boston and all that. And I'd say about 90% of that stuff was right, and the stuff that wasn't right was close enough to right to where I think they just kind of changed their plans a little bit after she left. So
yeah,
and I'm not saying because of her this guy's automatically verified or anything, but I do think that there are safe places on the internet where these people feel like they can go with their inside information and spread it to the masses without losing their job or getting in legal trouble. So I definitely think it's a possibility that it's real, and if it is, it's kind of funny because the kind of layout of what he was talking about, someone on Reddit posted a picture of it, and the controller that he's talking about in the dev kit is like It looks exactly like the Wii U gamepad.
Yeah.
So,
but he said it's smaller. He said it's the size of the bottom of a 3DS XL. So it's not a giant thing.
Yeah. See, I don't know. Like, of course, everybody's been thinking that the NX was going to be essentially like a better Wii U, and the gamepad is something that you actually take with you that replaces your 3DS. It's kind of what I...
That's what I was hearing, yeah.
Yeah, from most of the rumors, which I think that's what they need to do. And from this Reddit post, it doesn't seem like that's the case, because he's saying it's more like it's almost like a Tamagotchi type of thing.
Second screen, yeah.
Yeah, it's second screen, but it's really limited, the second screen is.
Very ancillary.
Yeah, it's not like a Vita remote play type thing, and I think that's what they need. So,
but maybe his dev kit doesn't have those features. Maybe it's an early... I don't know. We still... Even if it is right, you never know.
Yeah, I just think, it's tough because our internet infrastructure isn't to the place yet where you could stream from your NX to your mobile device, from wherever you are. But I still think it could be more than just like counting your steps type of thing,
Yeah, I definitely... Dom's topic is going to touch on the NX as a whole. But this whole thing of like this internet culture where people fake things and get people excited, it sucks, but then it's awesome in the same way, because it's like a 50-50 shot in the dark. This is either a fake and it's not real, or it's real and this is better than the fakes that happened, right? It seems like
you get to speculate about it and talk about it. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like this is more of what people want from Nintendo, but it still has a little bit of a Nintendo quirk to it to make it theirs. So the fact that it's quote unquote more powerful than the PS4 is something everyone wants this to be, or Nintendo needs it to be, rather, because if it isn't, then there's no point for it to come out, really. Especially with what we just talked about, the PS4K. PlayStation has a thing in the works that's 4K resolution, and it needs to be powerful.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out the Controlled Interest Gamecast. If you want to stay up to date, remember to subscribe on YouTube and iTunes, and give us a follow on SoundCloud and on Twitter at CTRLINT. #SmashTheDunst!